So let's start the session for today. Okay. Hope everyone can see my screen.
Not yet.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So today's session is how we can code a cell. So what we will be doing is we will write the cell file and we will be connecting several microservices together and packing them to three different cells. So let's dig in more. So the demo we are going to do has three microservices: geolocation service, restaurant service, and finally aggregator service. So the geolocation service is a simple microservice which calls to this public API, ipapi.com, which calls these endpoints, and when you provide an IP address to that one, you will get an you will get the geolocation data from that IP. So this API doesn't need any authentication. And then we have a restaurant service. This is a microservice wrapper for Zomato API. So when you provide the geolocations to this API, it will return the nearby restaurants. So for this one, we need the access key. And finally, this suggestion service. So this one is the publicly exposed service that we are going to run. So this service will, when we will take IP address, then it will call the other two services, restaurant service and geolocation service, and finally aggregate the results and send the response back to the caller. So this will be exposed globally via API manager, and it will be secured using an access token. So this is the final cell diagram that will be look like. We will be packing geo service to a geo cell, restaurant service to a geo restaurant service, and finally a suggestion service into a suggestion cell. So the suggestion cell will call these two other cells, and we will have a public gateway to expose this suggestion service. So regarding demo, I'll be using Cellery 0.05, and we will be running this demo on GCP Kubernetes cluster, and I have configured VSCode with Ballerina and Cellery plugins, and the Ballerina version is 1.03. So let's move on to the sample demo. Okay. So the first one, let's look at the geo sample. What we have here is let me explain this using the Ballerina generated request diagram. So what we have is when a request comes with an IP address, what we do is we call this geodata IP API endpoint and pass this IP address, and then we get the result back, and we respond. We send the the result that we get back to the caller. So this is just simple API. When you pass the IP address, we'll pass this to this HTTP ipapi.com, and we get the geolocation coordinates. So if you have any questions, you can ask. And so this is a Ballerina service, and I have annotated this one using Docker annotation. So I can build the Docker image itself using the Ballerina code. So let's first build this one. I'll be building the geo.bal. So it will generate the Docker image for me. And if I do a Docker images, it will be created now. So Anuruddha's geodata v1 will be created. So I have already pushed this one into my Docker hub, so it can be accessed publicly. And let's move into the restaurant service. what we have here is another sequence diagram that we have, sorry. So it's the same one. It get latitude and longitude as in request parameter, path parameters to this API service, and then we call this get location details method, which calls this Zomato endpoint and retrieve the restaurant details and respond it back to the caller. So this is the simple ballerina function that does that, ballerina service that does that. So it will be exposed as restaurant slash details slash and path with path and method get. So it will be running on port 9090, and the previous one that I have shown also, it runs on port 99. And the important thing about this one is, if you remember the one that I said, it wants an user key as an authentication. So we have to pass the user key to Zomato API in order to run this one. So what we do is we use the ballerina config API, which is used to read the environment variables, and we are expecting this user key to be present at the cell runtime to run this one. So we'll be calling this one, and we'll be heading it as a header to the request that will be sent to the Zomato API. And we finally get the JSON payload and we respond it back to the caller. Hope you are clear on this one. So let's move on to the other service, which is an aggregator service, which calls these two APIs and then finally returns the aggregated result. So this one also accepts a request with the body parameter. It's a post request. So what it does, it gets the IP address, then it calls that geolocation API. So it will call geo data will be called the IP API endpoint, and it will get the longitude and latitude that is corresponding to the IP address that we send. Then we send take those latitude and longitude values, and we pass that into the Zomato API, which in returns the restaurants near that latitude and longitude. Then we finally construct the JSON using the data that we found, and we finally return that geodata back to the client. So these are the Docker images that I'm going to build. So once we build these Docker images, we can move on to the cell file. Moving to writing the cell file. So let me build the restaurant bell as well. So I'm using ballerina build command, so it will compile this one and create a Docker image for me. Again, I'm going to run the aggregate.bal file. So I'll get two Docker images built out of this. So all these services are having this Docker config annotation which is coming from ballerina, which will create the Docker image for me. So I can do a Docker images and see whether those things are built. So all the aggregator, restaurant, and geo details will be built. So I have already pushed this one into my Docker Hub account, and I will not going to push it again since it will be time consuming. So now let's move on to how we can pack these three things into a cell. So the final cell that we have three cells wrapping these three microservices, and so suggestion cell will be calling these other two cells. Okay, so I have written the geo cell bal. So the cell file architecture is something like this. So we have two functions, build function and the run function. So this is a standard function that we need to write to consider this one as a cell file. So in this cell file, at the build time, we will execute the commands in build method, and at the runtime, we will be executing the commands in run method. So what I have done here is I have created the component, which is a microservice in our scenario, and I have given it a name, and as the source, I have given the Docker image as Anuruddha geodata v1. So this will be the source for our component, and this component exposes an API which is geo, and and it runs on port 80, and it is exposed locally. Since we are exposing the suggestions API globally, we only expose these ones internally. So I am giving the value as local here. So it will be only exposed at cell level and not the global. So finally, I am going to create a cell out of this component, and I am adding that created component back to the cell, created component to the cell, and I am calling this then inbuilt method create image with the cell and the iname. And the run method, this is a pretty standard run method. So what I do is I just construct the cell image from the name, and then I am running that image, constructed image, and creating the instance out of that image. So let's build this cell file now. So I have this cell file here. I'm going to do a Cellery build, and I'm going to give a name for that one. That's my organization name, cell name, and the version. So once I do a Cellery build, it will create a Cellery image for me. So if I do a Cellery list images, it will show the geo cell that I have just created. And moving into the restaurant cell, so we need to create a restaurant cell as well. So this is it's the same as the earlier one with different values. So we have build method and run method, and inside that we have a restaurant component which packs the restaurant Docker image that I have built, which is written in ballerina, and it is exposed as a ingress, and it's also exposed as local service, and it runs on port 9090, and I have given a context to identify this API. And if you remember the code that I have shown in the restaurant bell, we expect a user key as a parameter for this one. In order to call the Zomato API, we need this user key. So we need to pass that one at the runtime to the Cellery created instance. So this is the logic that it does that. So we construct the cell image, and then we get the configuration. We check for the user key as the environment or a parameter. If it is not found, we will be panicking, and we won't allow to run this cell without a user key. And then if the key is there, we set that one and into the environment variable that we have declared here, and then we finally run this instance. So let's build this restaurant cell as well. So it prints the variable that you required user key to run this one. So I'm going to do run this two instances that I have just created, and so the images that I have created are so geolocation and restaurant cell. So I'm going to run those two images, and for the geo cell, I'm giving the name as geo cell as the instance name for that one. So when I run this one, it will create a Kubernetes cell with the instance name as geo cell. Parallelly, I can run the restaurant service as well. So in order to run this one, I need to export the user key. So I'm going to export that one, and I'm going to do a Cellery run. And for that instance, I'm giving the restaurant cell as the key for that. So it start the restaurant cell, and the geo cell got deployed. Let's check the Cellery list instances. Come on, it will show the instances that are running at the moment. So geo cell and restaurant cell both got created. Now we need to write the complex one, which is a suggestions one. So what I do is I write this cell at the real time so that you can follow. So let me take the empty ballerina file. So what I have to do is first import the Cellery library. So since I have installed ballerina, since I have installed Cellery plugin to this VSCode, I can simply generate the build method from this one. So we can just do a Cellery build and it will generate all the basic snippet for a build function. So for that one, I'm going to give the name as suggestions for the suggestion for this component, and then I'm going to give the component name as suggestion component. This one as well. And for the cell name, I'm giving suggestion cell. And the image I will give. So if I look at the Docker images that I built, so I need to wrap the aggregator cell Docker image inside this image, inside this component. So I'm going this one, and so I need to add a ingress for this one. So I'm going to add ingress. As the ingress name, I'm giving suggestion API. And for this one, I'll be creating an Cellery HTTP API ingress. And I need to give the port for this one. It will be 9090. If you look at the aggregate cell, it runs on port 9090. And then I'm going to give a context for this one for identification. So it will be suggest cell, suggest, and I'm going to expose this one as a global. I'm going to expose this as global. So it will be exposed globally and will be accessible via API managers. And next I'm going to add the resource definitions for this one. So if you look at the aggregators bal file, so it has a post resource. So I'll be giving a post resource to this API definition. So the method will be post, and the path will be a slash, since any resource with port will be accessible with this syntax. And so this, if you look at this aggregate bal file, we need two URLs. So it needs to talk to the geolocation API and the restaurant location API. So these are expected as an environment variable. So I'm going to add those as environment variables to this component. So I'll give the name as geoURL. And for the moment, I'll give an empty value for that one. Similarly, restaurant URL, copy from here. So, and an empty value will be provided for this one. We will look at how we can populate this value in a moment. And if you look at this cell diagram, so this suggestion cell depends on these two cells, restaurant cell and the geolocation cell. So you'll be adding dependencies, those two cells as dependencies to this cell, this component. So we'll be adding a cell dependency, and we'll be. So I'm going to give an alias for GeoCell, and I'm going to give that we are depending on these organizations, and this name, it will be this GeoCell V1 version. The version will be V1. Similarly, I'm going to add another dependency for restaurant cell. So it will be and the image name would be my York V1. Okay. So if you have a question, you can directly ask. So we'll be creating a restaurant cell, dependency as restaurant cell. Now, so our cell definition is completed. Now what we'll do is we'll populate these environment variable values. So in order to do that, we have some inbuilt methods. So I'm going to get this suggestion components, environment variables, and the geo URLs. This is the ballerina syntax to access a component record, geo URL and its value. So I'm going to get the expose cell gateway URL. So we can use the Cellery commands or the suggestions that is provided by the Cellery plugin to populate this value. So let's first see how we can get this one from the CLI. We can do Cellery list ingressors. And if I want GeoCells one, so it gives us the ingress key of that one. So this key is generated when you build the cell file, and we can access this. We can give this key to a inbuilt method, and we can get the actual cell URL for that cell gateway URL for that API. So we'll be doing that using this method. So we have inbuilt method Cellery get reference, and for that one we have to pass the component and the alias of the dependency alias. So for the GeoCell, it will be GeoCell, and so if I do a get, so it will suggest those, our plugin will publish those reference keys as well. So we'll be using this Geo API URL value, and I'll be casting this one into string. Similarly, we can do the same for the restaurant URL. So in that case, it will be the restaurant cell. And if we get the suggestions, we can use this one. So these two values will be same if I do the Cellery listing ingresses for the restaurant cell as well. So it is the same value that we have added here. So that's it for the build. So we have a call in this create image method that's already populated. with the snippet that we have generated. Now we'll write the run method for this one. For that one also I'll use the Cellery run function snippet. So for this one I'll call this one suggestion cell, and I'll be constructing a cell image, and the name will be iname. So this returns a cell image or error, so I am going to check for errors. So these are ballerina syntax again. And finally I am caught in this inbuilt create instance method with the required parameters. So this is what the cell file looks like for a suggestions API. So the important things to note is that how we have wired this one. So we have that our aggregator service needs these two URLs as environment variables to to work with. So we have used this get reference method to wire the values at the runtime, and we can use this one to wire anything that requires this cell. So let's build this one as well. So I'm going to do a Cellery build suggestion cell.bal. And so it created the new images. So the suggestion image got just created now. So now we can see whether we have built the image that we required. We can run this view command, which will open up the browser and show the values. So we have a suggestions component inside the suggestion cell, and it calls these two cells, restaurant and geo cell. And inside the restaurant cell we have a restaurant component, and inside the geo cell we have geo component. So seems pretty good. So let's run this one. Before this running this, I have already started the other two instances. So we have restaurant cell and geo cell running at the moment. So we can already, if you want, we can start with this one with dependency as well. So we are not going to do that in this call. So we will be just wiring the running instances to the suggestion cell. So I'm going to do Cellery run myog suggestions v1, the image name, and I want to give this one name as suggestion cell. And for the so if you look at the cell definition, we have defined two dependencies. So geo cell requires instance and restaurant cell requires instance. So I'm going to give the geo cells alias and the instance name that I want to wire. So it will be geo cell, so this one. And for the restaurant cell, I'm giving the restaurant cell dependency restaurant cell. So geocell, which is a type of this cell image, which is an instance of this image, and it will be geocell, and restaurant cell will be an image of this one, and it will be running on this one. So we can just run this command, and it should look up and wire these values. So it validates the dependencies, and it will do a kubectl call and check whether the value. So if we look at this one, so the geo cell is available in runtime, and restaurant cell is also available in runtime. So it will be only starting this suggestion cell. Okay, it got started. We can do a kubectl get false and see the status of these things. So everything is running, and I have an API store. So it got created. Since we are only publishing the suggestion cell, only the suggestion API got created. So let's access this one. Sign in first. I'm going to subscribe to this API using the default application and generate production keys, and it will generate an access token for us. So now we are going to access this API host method. So it can be addressed as suggestion cell suggest 0.1. So we will do a curl, and I have the URL, and as data will be passing in public IP from Sri Lanka, Colombo. So it should list the values restaurants near Colombo. So I have changed the access token, and I can just do a JQ. Okay. So this is the result. We got location as Colombo, Sri Lanka, and we got some restaurants that has restaurants ratings and average cost. Basically, what we construct is aggregate cell. So this JSON we have received name, address, tracing, and if we change get an US IP address like this one, it should result the US restaurants. Okay, so we got the USA restaurants from San Francisco, US. Okay, so let's move on whether the observability works. You can go to the Cellery dashboard. So we got the suggestion cell, restaurant cell, and everything created as expected, and we didn't have any failures. And we can check the instances and those dependencies and component details on those things. So we will do another session on how we can access the Cellery dashboard. Basically, you can see all the requests that are coming through and their status and health, and you can use this to tracing and debugging for microservices. So that's the demo for today. If you have any questions, you can ask.
No one was asking few questions. I'm not sure whether things are clarified for him.
Okay, hi, Noan.
Hey, sorry guys, that was me. So yeah, no, I was just actually working on this API management stuff, so I think this is very timely. Joined this. Thanks. Regarding this Ingress stuff, so I was actually trying out micro gateway and trying to add it to our CLI and how to add my gateways, etc. So now since we are using Cellery as defining an application, so if a user also gives a Swagger definition, we can generate that ingress part into the application definition and then publish it, right? So that automatically exposes as an API. Yeah. So my question is basically now, micro gateways architecture is okay. If you have a micro gateway and if you expose an API for the micro gateway, you don't need another global gateway. You can just expose it from the micro gateway itself. Here I know you are using Envoy, but it's synonymous, right? You can use micro gateway or Envoy, doesn't matter.
Yeah. So
Um,
even now we can actually replace micro gateway, but in order to expose globally, there should be some way of accessing, I mean, allowing external traffic to come inside. So there should be some
right.
external facing thing. So even if you use a micro gateway, that is not directly exposed outside, that is only visible within
Yeah.
the cluster. So there should be a
So
way.
is it a restriction that we put on ourselves, or is it a Kubernetes restriction? Or
So the Kubernetes
just,
wise,
I
also,
didn't understand that.
it's like not or not all the gateways we have to expose outside. So generally, like by using some Nginx ingress or some sort of way, we have to allow the traffic inside. So for API manager, what we have done is even API manager currently we have deployed as a Kubernetes pod, and we have created an Nginx ingress to allow the external traffic to hit the API manager. So otherwise, it's everything is internal. So there is no external
Right.
traffic directly come inside.
So think of like this now. If we don't have a global gateway, if we only have the store or developer portal, we can still use Nginx to route public or external traffic to the Envoy gateway, right? Envoy ingress, which means I'm just allowing external traffic to whatever APIs that I'm exposing from the cell gateway.
My connection went unstable, so I didn't understand what was the question.
Yeah, so my question is like, let's imagine that we don't have the global gateway, but we have a developer portal, which is just a web application, right? And then now we have, let's say, 10 cells. Within the cell, I want to expose few services to the outside world, like as in globally, right? And then it's a matter of just exposing it through an Nginx global ingress, right? We don't necessarily need another gateway.
Okay, so you wanted to selectively
expose through Nginx, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And then publish that to the developer portal, only to the developer portal, so you can get an access token and then get. Because I'm thinking of use case where now, okay, sorry. Right.
Yeah, in that way, somehow we have to automatically update the Nginx HTTP configuration to map that traffic in that level too.
But you are anyway automatically updating WSO2 gateway, right?
Yes, yeah. So
currently you can actually use there's an ingress extension, so you can actually, so for the web cell we use directly, like we can't expose web cell from the gateway, so we have different ingress extension. You can actually have a virtual host which can route to your cell and it will get exposed. But the thing is, like currently the Envoy is kind of more like a proxy, not like actual API and full-blown gateway. So that's why we are like exposing it via the gateway.
Yeah. No, okay. No, that's fine. That's fine. So I am just figuring out what to do. So the architecture, what I see is people will have multiple, logical domains, let's say marketing, sales, or whatever, and they'll probably have multiple gateways to expose to outside world. So they'll have. So I can talk a little bit about my project. So I'm working on this project called Choreo. So in this Choreo project, you can create, users can create applications, and this application is basically, it can be a collection of services, etc. Right? And then the user can also create a gateway, and this gateway can be anything. So and then whatever service that he creates, he should be able to attach to that gateway. Right? So I'm thinking of using Cellery for this thing. So my question was earlier, like, okay, now Cellery let you define the ingress, so I automatically get a gateway. So I should be able to use that gateway. Or architecturally, is it better to create another gateway, which can be WSO2's micro gateway or something else, and then attach the ingress that's coming out from Envoy to that? Because I don't think I will have like one shared monolithic gateway. I'll have probably multiple gateways. Anyway, so that's something I'm exploring architecture wise. But I see a lot of possibilities.
Multiple gateways in the sense you're selectively for different applications you would like to use Envoy and then use micro gateways for some applications and stuff like kind of mix and match, or like you for a deployment you can select
No, so as Nadun,
what.
I think it's Nadun, right? What he said is like Envoy is like a proxy today, right?
Yes.
If you use instead of Envoy, if you use micro gateway, then I will have API management capabilities as well. So then I don't need the proxy. I can just use micro gateway and a developer portal
And directly
and
expose it out.
selectively publish whatever I want. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So
yeah,
that's one option.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
anyhow,
if
like
that option doesn't work, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just telling like we are anyhow currently looking into the options of like having kind of pluggable gateway in a sense, but still like I'm assuming in one setup, if it is Envoy, it could be Envoy, or if it is micro gateway, it could be micro gateway. So like people can put their own gateways, but I was still assuming in a particular deployment, it could be one type of gateway. So it's not like, so
Right.
if it's Envoy, it will be the entire cells deployed in the, this thing was Envoy, micro gateway, the entire cells will be using micro gateway. So we're thinking of that.
But I see advantage of using Envoy as well, because if I'm doing inter-service communication within the cell, Envoy can add value, right?
No, inter-service communication doesn't need to go through Envoy.
Okay. I see.
Yeah, so that basically directly call the other services. So only the network boundary is created for the inter-cell, not the inter-service. Within the cell boundary, you can call anything. When you're calling a service from another cell, it goes through the Envoy.
So for every microservice that I'm deploying inside the cell, I don't have Envoy sidecar.
No, sidecar is there. Cell gateway is not there.
No, right. That's okay. That's right. So, okay. So you are using Envoy in a dual purpose manner. So you have Envoy sidecar with every microservice, and also you have Envoy as a cell gateway.
Yes, you are right.
I see. Okay, got it. Okay, then it's interchangeable, right? Then we can remove Envoy from the cell gateway and put micro gateway.
Exactly. So that's what I was saying.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you.
That's but yeah, I see there is a point actually. Like sometimes it's a good idea to go through. Not necessarily we have to always go through the global API manager. There may be some good additions. Like we can directly expose to Nginx gateway. I think we can do some sort of model and kind of support these sort of features. Yeah, that's something good. Like.
So I'm creating an architecture document. So I'll share with the team, so we can have some discussion around it.
Yeah, that would be cool. Okay, thank you. Okay, so is there any other questions, guys? So one of the problem I think recently it came during a couple of our discussions is basically how we do the the cell reference, basically how we are managing the dependencies and getting the value to basically like filling up how do we know the geo URL and restaurant URL. People are kind of getting confused over that side, so we may have to look how we can improve. I think one of the big confusions is like in the get reference, we are passing a component and then we are alias name. Then that returns the list of.
That is all a record.
Yeah, that returns a record. And it returns a list of ingresses that is exposed from that cell instance, right? Which is basically, let me read. So we are referring to line number 35. So we are calling Cellery get reference. And then we are passing a component name suggestion component. And we are taking a reference of the alias geocell. That alias is basically dependency cells, this one, yes. and therefore we are resolving the reference of org name geocell version 1. Huh. Yeah, I think this is where the confusion is coming. What do you think, guys? I mean, this place, a lot of people are confused. They are kind of wondering. Maybe. So this is Anuruddha, like the line number 30 is basically cell image name, right? That's what we have put like this. So instead of providing inline here, can we define it on the top? I mean, beginning of the build method, the cell image. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there. This is like different ways. I just want to try it out and see whether that works. Cellery and then image name, yeah. And geo image, yes. And yes, and have your image definition. Right. So, and then we use this one in the, yeah, they're clever. And then in the cell reference, can we pass the cell image, whatever geo image thing? We don't need a suggestion component, right? Do we need it?
No, we can pass it like
Directly the.
Yeah, directly we can pass the image.
Yeah.
That will work.
That's one way I'm just thinking, but the problem is people have to define it before the before defining the component.
Calling
If they wanted to reuse, they have to define it before the component. Otherwise, they have to repeat the same string again.
Yeah.
Those are the two variations. I think
But the one problem is that we can't validate that user has put that one as a dependency. So we can do it at the. So if the geo image not is put as a dependency, then again he can get any reference.
Okay, so that validation we can't do. So we can't make sure. Okay.
Without passing the component.
Okay.
That's the trade-off that we have to do.
That's what, okay. The only problem is with the, I mean, people were finding bit difficult with that part.
Yeah. Maybe we can document it better, or
maybe. What do you think? With the IDE improvements, are we providing any sort of help?
Yeah, it's very helpful. So you don't have to do referencing listing versus it just shows that available in the.
It's that, right?
Just matter of rent. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Maybe probably we can get the feedback again probably after the ID improvements. Probably that's what you think. Yeah. Because this is previous one was having the additional validation checks. So that's a good part. Yeah. Then this current one maybe looks a bit readable, but then again we are losing that the other additional benefits that the other syntax gave. So maybe the IDE would solve the problem, I think. But others think, like, I just wanted to get others' feedback as well. Miraj, what do you think? Are you there? That's joking. Okay.
Yeah, definitely, this is going to be a tool assisted, right? So
come again.
People may not code like the entire cell, right? So
yeah. Yeah, people will be anyhow changing, but the problem is when they were coding, there was another session I was also doing so there are like people got confused on resolving. I mean, how do I know the resolving the difference part, and why do I supposed to pass my component? And that particular place, I saw people were kind of real confused. So that's, yeah, I'm also kind of thinking what's the best thing that we can do.
Ultimately, if ID or some graphical something can like uh, resolve these kind of things, not going to be a big issue anyway.
You mean the if ID resolves, it's not a big issue. People can actually work with it. That's it, is it?
Yeah. Because anyway, um, people will do all this boilerplate or like this kind of a code using an ID, right?
Mm.
People will do a simple thing, but in the
The real.
actual cases.
Okay. So Anuruddha, like in our current syntax, line number 42, when we type the restaurant cell, that the alias of the dependencies, when did it give you suggestions? So what happened actually there?
Alias, it doesn't.
It
This
doesn't.
part. I think we can improve Nadun, can you?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, we can try to give that as a suggestion as well. Again, like it's like for 80% or 90% of the time it will work. Like for like most of the boilerplate code, we can give the alias as a suggestion as well. Even the components probably we can give. I mean, we can pick the components that are defined and give all
Yeah.
those
So I
things
think
also like
those. Yeah, I mean, if we give that sort of a thing, I think that would be reasonably good enough for people to understand, right?
yeah, we can try to give those things as well. I mean, yeah.
It's very cool to see that when you say get and it's giving the ingress key, so that's a big relief. I think that was one of the biggest pain that we had. So that's a really is good thing to have it. But
Yes.
additionally,
Yes, so this concern was raised in the usability testing as well. So it's great to have this like this now.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So multiple people raise, but maybe, so Minuli, almost that's what. So maybe with the ID, maybe people can, I don't know.
Yeah, the thing with the ID is like, I mean, there are like so many things we can suggest, and there are so many combinations where like things
You
can.
can write it also. Yeah.
So like, if you want to improve the ID to that level, I think we'll have to actually keep on using and actually getting more and more suggestions in, because like. I don't think like just having a couple of people actually working on the ID itself we can't actually improve
Definitely.
it.
Yeah.
Really, like we need to get more and more input in about like things we can improve, and I mean it will be a process actually. It won't be something that we can actually finish in one release or something.
Yeah.
It will
I
take some
certainly.
time and suggestions.
Yes, I certainly agree. Yeah. So, but at least like as I'm hearing the get reference is kind of like getting sort of like complicated from different people. So maybe what we can think right now, because like even the current proposed, I mean, what we discuss right now, that is also not kind of solving the entire problem. It is bringing some other new problems. So therefore, like, shall we then think the ID's suggestion would help the experience and get more feedback, would get the kind of let the people like gave sort of like the people who found hard, we can basically ask them to try it out again and see whether that is now at least like it is helpful now, or like what do they feel, kind of like updated feedback.
Yeah.
Shall we just try to get that?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so let's do like that, and if that still doesn't work, then we have to rethink actually what is the best thing that we can do. Yeah, because even the current one has other problems, so I don't see a point fixing it this way. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So then we'll keep the syntax as of now. Like we're not going to change the syntax. So we'll once the ID is out, we'll get the updated feedback from them, and let's see how that goes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Great. So
Is there any plan to do a graphic to code?
Come
It
again?
should be. Are we planning to do like a graphical tool to generate the skeleton?
Yeah.
So we have the code graphics, right?
Yeah, so that was the plan. So anyhow, we were also working on from the cell diagrams, how to, I mean, drawing the cell diagrams, and we will be generating it. So that we were working on a tool, so that would help. But then again, that won't have the other way up. So graphical tool to code generation will be there, like at some point, but. Not code to graphical tool, and you can't keep on updating the graphical tool. Only one way you can generate the skeleton. So that, because like other way around, it's kind of hard to do. I'm not sure. I mean, the first cut the graphical
we sort of
code.
we sort of took a judgment call on not allowing it because it can get really messy.
Yeah.
We allow that. Like people can edit and they can have their all sorts of logic, and it can get tricky. So like we sort of made a judgment call not to have the other way. So we'll have a one-way generation of from a diagram to code, only a one-way generation basically. That we will definitely have in the future. Maybe not in the next release, but somewhere in the future.
Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah. Okay, so I think it's time for us to wrap up. So guys, shall we wrap up? So are we good?
Yeah, we are good. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much
Thanks for
for the
joining.
nice demo. Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Bye.